If my people, Bible reading part 1, 122. If I asked you, have you heard of John 3:16? For Yahweh so loved the world that you know it, don't you? In fact, if I ask almost any Christian, do you and can you quote John 3:16? They would say almost all, the great majority would say yes to the first part, and a certain percentage would be able to actually memorize it, that short verse, much less know all 10 commandments and be able to quote it right now. But the fact is, giving the Christians and their preachers who are responsible for this and their Sunday school teachers credit, they get a ton of credit. There, I said something positive. Now, J. Vernon McGee, if you do a little research on him, he used to have a radio series, and before that, a tent. And after that, his tent came into the auditoriums because movie theaters were big in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. That's when he was in his heyday, although he died in the early 80s. J. Vernon would be arguing with you. Modern day Christian preachers. He'd be so upset if he was alive because the book of Zephaniah is John 3:16. And he said this. He was in an auditorium of between 20, they don't count exactly, but it was somewhere between 2,600 and 3,000 people. Now that's a lot to hear his sermons. He was a big draw in those days. And he asked the question, so the whole audience heard it. He said it loud and clear. How many of you know and have been taught in Sunday school or church Zephaniah? Two people out of 2,600 raised their hands and said, yes, the pastor did bring up the book of Zephaniah. Folks, now you understand where Paul, when he was shown by Yeshua, because Paul did not have access to the New Testament. He wrote about half of it, but he did not write it yet, and he did not have access to any of the other writings, with the exception of maybe Yokov, James, the half-brother of Yeshua, which was the first book, not Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John. It was Yaakov, it was James that wrote the first letter that Paul probably has access to. And the fact that, boy, here we go. I enjoy coffee, but. So Paul got that information about, for Yahweh so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. He got that from Zephaniah. And yet Christians today don't read Zephaniah. And the pastors don't let them read it. Wow. 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 Everything's a wow in this YouTube thing. The word of Yahweh, chapter 1, verse 1, came to Zephaniah, son of Cushi, son of Gedaliah, son of Amariah, the son of Hezekiah, during the reign of Josiah, son of Ammon, king of Judah. Ooh, boy, this guy really tells you who he is. He's not afraid. He's not like Habakkuk, which when we get to him, he don't let you know where he came from. Zephaniah, meaning Yahweh will hide. You notice all these prophets have interesting names and meanings in Hebrew, and if you put them all together, it's like a story. Might mean something to you to understand that. As my brother would say, words mean things. Okay. Verse 2. I will sweep away everything from the face of the earth, declares Yahweh. Ooh, there you go. I will sweep away both men and animals. Now, why again, just as they did in the days of Noah, and why again in Genesis 1, why did Yahweh have to recreate and remake things? To make it perfect, to make it very good. Why did he have to mess with animals? What did animals do wrong? Well, what did they do wrong in the days of Noah? Nothing. Yahweh destroyed them, destroyed trillions of creatures. Trillions, not billions, with a flood. Because the flood represents salting of the earth. Salting. And understand this. The seas back then, and you'll understand through lots of science, lots of real science, not the fake science. Where did the salt come from? Today we worry about the global gases and the global and climate change and all this stuff. The original oceans, through studies and science, show that the entire oceans were not salty. So where did the salt come from? The volcanoes, the disturbances, the changing of the entire foundation of the earth, fires, CO2 emissions, animal doo-doo, human waste, all this stuff makes the waters salty. And all the salty purifies things. Because Hasatan and his minions alter and screw up our creation. It's not Yahweh. It's Hasatan and his minions. And now we don't have people called minions. That's just a cartoon series. We have people who think they are little gods these days, and their little god power is called science. Ignore these people. Come out of her, my people. He said, I'm going to sweep away the animals. I'll sweep away the birds of the air and the fish of the sea. The wicked will have only heaps of rubble when I cut off man from the face of the earth. Because these people have been, and these animals and everything's been altered so much, Yahweh's going to have to sweep them and start a cleanliness process. He's going to do it, not man. Comment. This is the last prophetic book written before the end of the Davidic kingdom. Well, it's according to a lot of the people who put the Bible together. So, having said that, it's one of the last books. Let's go to verse 11. Yahweh will be awesome to them when he destroys all the Elohims of the land. The nations on every shore will worship him, everyone in its own land. So is everybody going to move, including those who hear and obey, and all the people who don't hear and obey, during the millennium to Jerusalem? No, you just read it. Key point. Everyone will worship Yahweh in their own land. They will Shabbat in their homes. The command to come at the appointed times to offer yourself a living sacrifice will occur. We're living sacrifices now. We don't have to slaughter animals on an altar anywhere in the world, and especially in Jerusalem. Yeshua was the last animal sacrifice on the altar. He was a human. He was Yahweh. He was the son of Yahweh. Okay? No more animal representations. Period. It's over. It's over. Verse 8. Therefore wait for me, declares Yahweh. Wait. That means don't go to Jerusalem. Don't. For the day I will stand up to testify. I have decided to assemble the nations, to gather the kingdoms, and pour out my wrath on them, all my fierce anger. The whole world will be consumed by the fire of my jealous anger. Who's going to put all this together? Yahweh. Is Hasatan involved in it? Oh, yeah, but is he in charge of anything, really? Really? No. He thinks he is. He's not. Verse 13. The remnant of Israel will do no wrong. They will speak no lies, nor will deceit be found in their mouths. They will eat and lie down, and no one will make them afraid. Comment. Again, a remnant remain of all the people of Israel. Mathematically, let's think about it. You science people, people like math, get your pens out. There were 72 priests who went up on the mountain during the first Exodus to the marriage supper. Remember that? Moses and Aaron, remember that? With 3 million people on the mountain below, counting the women and children and everybody else, the soldiers, each priest was responsible for over, count them up, 42,000 souls. Today, what would we call that in the millennium? 42,000 sheep. Now, not pagans and heathens and people that hate Yeshua. These are believers. These are people today we call Christians. They're not going to be the bride unless they hear and obey. But they're going to be invited to the wedding as guests. There's where your guest comes from. There's where your sea of people in Revelation comes from. Okay? In the millennium, 144,000 priests will be responsible for how many? Count it up. About 6 billion people using the same percentages. How remarkable. There's your science. What was that song? He blinded me with science. All right. Here's a good one. Verse 18. The sorrows for the appointed feast, the sorrows, not the appointed feast, the sorrows for the appointed feast I will remove from you. They are a burden and a reproach to you. Comment. So they're going to be the feasts and festivals on this earth. As long as the earth exists, there's going to be his feasts and festivals, not Christmas, bunny rabbits, and all this other stuff. Okay? So why are you still doing it? I know great majority of you are still holding out, especially you Christians. Well, and my wife says, are you the priest of the family or are you not? If you're the priest of the family and you love your wife, you really love her? Well, okay, if you love her so much and she likes bunny rabbits and she likes Easter bunnies and she likes all this other stuff, this pagan Christmas stuff, then dragging a tree in, read that. It's in the Bible. You're not supposed to drag a tree in because that's what the Germanic tribes did to talk to their little gods. Uh-oh. Okay. Just telling you. Just telling you. Verse 19, at that time I will deal with all who oppressed you. I will rescue the lame and gather those who have been scattered. I will give them praise and honor in every land where they were put to shame. And at that time I will gather you. At that time I will bring you home. I will give you honor and praise among the peoples of the earth, and when I restore your fortunes before your eyes. Once again, hello, listen to what was just said. Mr. I want to go to Israel and live there because I love Jesus. I love God. I want to do sacrificing just like I want to start all over again because Messiah's going to show up and he's going to approve it. That's the Antichrist. And the Antichrist will not come to you who are scattered throughout the world and bring you in. He will call you in, or you will think you're called in. But here it says he will gather you himself. Well, there's one assurance right there if you know. Because Hasatan's not going to do that. Don't be fooled by the first Christ coming, the second time. That's the Antichrist. All right. Comment to close. Wait upon Yeshua to come and bring us to the promised land. Historical notes. To be apologetic in defense of Bible history, it becomes necessary in the last day due to intentional confusion on truth and facts coming out of organized institutional church leaders, colleges of both religious and secular, to repeat at times the obvious truths in the Word. What has separated many believers into sects these days is the argument of Israel the land, Palestine the land, the old land of Canaan, and the Philistines. Simply put, it is easy to understand if we simply look up records and use the original meanings of words and phrases. In this book, Zephaniah, Yahweh mentions judgments of cities and people such as Gaza, Askelon, Ashdod, Ekron, the nation of the Ketherites, the land of the Philistines. In Hebrew, which is where the original writings were first documented, the word Philistine simply means migrators. Migrators, they never came from Palestine like they claim in the last 100 years here, since 1948. Sorry, liars. They migrated, most probably from the island of Crete and the island nations out there, because they were immigrated in, or they were forced to be immigrated and thrown out of other countries back to Palestine, and they're still not even, they just don't get along with anybody there. All they want to do is fuss and fight. Who wants those people around anyway? Palestine, since the time of the Babylonian return, were the people who were permitted to stay in the land, to take care of it, to farm it, to sell the products, and keep the oppressors fed. Some of those Palestinians may be Christians, and that's the mixture problem that is the argument today. Some of them might even be of the 12 tribes who are simply disobeying the Father still. All this is going to be worked out by Yahweh, not man. All right? John 3:16, Zephaniah, same thing.